Hello, I'm John Gregory. You're watching the Villa View, up the Villa.
So, welcome back to the Villa View for dressing down of Aston Villa's 2-1 defeat away to Nottingham Forest at the City Ground in circumstances that really have frustrated me, I must say. And I'm not going to press any opinion on anyone. I'm just going to say what I think about what happened, and we want your thoughts in the comments section as usual about what you think about the performance. So I'm going to try and pull a few positives out of it because it's pointless me just ranting at the camera for 10 minutes. You can go and watch Arsenal Fan TV to do that. It's not what we're about, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try and be reasonable about it, but some points may come across quite strong. So let's start with one of the positives for me today, and that was the fact that Scott Hogan made his debut and he looked really good. The link-up play with Jonathan Kodjia was getting there to me during the game. It was sort of picking up as the game went on. It's just a shame that Jonathan Kodjia doesn't like to pass at times, because I think if he did, then we might have had a few more chances than we did. And to be fair, we did have chances as well. Scott Hogan had a few decent ones, and he was very lively and he really put himself about a bit. And with those two, I think we've got possibly two of the best strikers in the league, I'd argue. When that link-up works perfectly, then we're flying. And when Kodjia learns to pass, I think that Scott Hogan and him will be perfect. I think that the qualities that Scott Hogan has are qualities that Kodjia doesn't have. And it works vice versa in terms of Kodjia's got pace. Hogan hasn't got as much, but he's got a bit more strength to him. And it works both ways, I think, with those two. And I think that's why they complement each other really well. I thought that was one of the main positives for me today, was the way they worked. And I think there's something there for us to take from the game in terms of those two and starting the two up front. So I thought it worked quite well. The run that Hogan made from the halfway line and dribbled through a few different players, I thought that was fantastic. And to have a ball carrying striker is everything in the modern game, because you can't just rely on a striker that can hold up the ball. I think that Hogan can do that quite well as well, because he's built in a decent shape. But the way he carried the ball forward as well, I think it's a really good positive. And to me, that's one of the main positives we can try and take from today's performance. The other positive for me today is James Bree. Obviously came for his debut, and I thought that something that I'll come on to later is the tactics and the wing-back suggestion and how it works. But for me, James Bree was 10 times the right-back that Alan Hutton is in terms of today. He got up the pitch when he could do, despite wing-backs being fairly ineffective. He did a really good job, and he won us a few corners as well. He put himself about a bit, and overall, I thought it was quite an industrious performance for a debut, and he didn't really do anything wrong as such. And that's a positive for me alone, in the fact that when we've had Alan Hutton at right back, we've had all sorts of issues. But today there wasn't them, so to me that's a positive to take from it. And James Bree can only grow in stature. He might only be 19 years of age, but when you're that young, you've got a lot of development to do. And today, big learning curve for him in terms of possibly one of the different formations he possibly hasn't been worked in before. And I thought he did really well. I thought his link-up play was getting there. And I thought that in general, he put himself about him in the right areas that a right-back should be. And he tracked back as well. And I know that me and Dan bang on about Alan Hutton quite consistently about how he's been this season for us. But I just think that James Bree is a massive improvement. I don't know what you think about him, but for me today, as a debutant, he didn't play bad at all. Then the only other positive, I'm afraid, for me today was set pieces. I thought that as a whole, we weren't clinical at all from set pieces, but the fact we've actually had a few decent deliveries is just a massive bonus to me. We've got the likes of Conor Horahan and Henry Lansbury, who can both whip in a decent ball from a corner or a set piece from a free kick. And we saw it a few times, of course, some problems where Henry Lansbury launched one in from the halfway line from a free kick, and Tommy Alfick, I can't remember, Tommy Alfick, might have been James Chester, got onto the end of it, and it forced a really good save from the Forest goalkeeper. That for me is a great positive, that we've got a player now who can go and take a decent free kick, and it creates more chances. It's something we haven't been doing enough this season, and our chances we have been creating this season haven't been from set pieces. But today we look different in terms of that. The corners that were being put in were different. We didn't try and just put a dead delivery in where it's just one sort of delivery. We tried multiple routines, and it confused Forest a bit. And to me, if you've got a good set piece game plan, the chances are you're going to create chances that you're going to score from. It's just a shame we didn't have the clinical edge, which I'll be coming on to very shortly in the negatives I've taken from the game. For me, the main negative from today was, well, there's about 5 points. The first one is the wing-back system we tried to play. We tried to play with the three sit-in centre-backs, obviously, in James Chester, Nathan Baker and Tommy Alfitt, which I was totally fine with. It worked quite well. But you've got wing-backs in James Bree and Bjarnason. Now, I know I touched on that Bree had a decent first game, but to me, the system just didn't benefit his strengths. I thought that the wing-backs were just ineffective. If you're playing 3 centre-backs, you're expecting your wing-backs to be bombing on forwards. That's the way that system works. You don't do it to sit deep like we did. If you want to sit deep, you play a 4-4-2 and you expect your full-backs to be coming back. But by having the 3 sitting centre-backs, the idea is your 2 wing-backs, whether that be Arneson or Bree, whoever is playing at those wing-back positions, they should be allowed to bomb on and push forwards, to offer more support to the 3 midfielders and further forward from that. But that wasn't the case today. Arneson, for me, he looked a lot better. He looked a lot better from what I saw on Tuesday evening, where he looked out of it and totally unfit. I don't know what it was today, but he looked 10 times better in that sense. But for me, he should have been pushing on a lot more further. If we're playing a wing-back system, Neil Taylor and Jordan Marthy are much better options when it's coming to a left wing-back. And if you wanted to play wing-backs in general, you've got to be pushing them on. Today, we did not do that. And to me, that is a major downfall. If you can't get your players coming forward, like Bree and Arneson, you're not going to create as many chances. And that's the case today. When Bree did get that opportunity to push forward and bomb on, it worked quite well. He won us a corner. It proves that by having your wing-backs bomb on, it works. But it didn't be the case today, because for some reason we just sat too deep. And that is my issue with the main formation today, is we sat way too deep. Forest were there for the taking. We took the lead and they were there for the taking. We pressured quite well when we were chasing the game to try and make it 1-0. And after that we scored. We just dropped the pressure and we sat so deep that we invited so much pressure onto us. We were expected to soak it up like a sponge. But we can't do that when our defence has been so shaky this season. It just doesn't work that way. We've scored 8 goals now away from home all season. 7 up till today. And you can't be expected to try and soak up pressure like a sponge when you're scoring so little goals away from home. You've got to have a system that works both ways. But by sitting too deep, that isolated the strikers and it made the whole game plan just ineffective for me, totally. I've sort of slightly covered it there when I've talked about the formation and the pressure that we put on the ball. But for me, when we pressurised Forest today, it was great. We looked good. We moved players in the right positions in terms of Horahan in the midfield, alongside Lansbury. They pushed forwards and it worked quite well. Hogan chased the ball down and so did Codger at times. And when those are chasing the ball down, it worked quite well. But for me, that's the negative. We didn't do that enough. There was not enough pressure on the ball. And if you're not pressurising the ball, it gives Forest all the time in the world to play the ball out. We saw it with Matty Cash, who basically bossed the game in the middle of midfield for them. He was allowed to spray the ball left, right and centre and open up chances for Forest, whether that be on either side or managing to feed the ball forward to a Sombalonga, who I must say held the ball really well all game long. He was a real threat to us and we couldn't deal with him. And that's something we didn't do right, because when we did try and pressurise a Sombalonga, he was just too strong for us, and Elphick ended up hauling him down. I think Chester did at one point as well, because we just could not simply deal with him, and there was just not simply enough pressure. Well, I'm sure if Dan Bardell was here today, he'd be applauding me for making this point. But today, Sam Johnston has had an absolute howler once again, and I just can't get it. Like, I genuinely cannot get what was going through his mind today. The shot wasn't great by any means of the imagination from Osborne. It dipped very slightly in front of Johnston, but any keeper worth his stock should be diving on that ball and preventing it from going anywhere. Where you come down to the one side and you try and make the ball come into you and you dive on top of it to prevent it from going anywhere. It's something that we didn't do today in goal with Johnston. He flapped at it, and is it a pointless signing? Because to me it does seem that way. I know I backed him to start off with, but I said within reason, and within reason was the fact that was Galini going or not? Obviously we've seen that he has gone, and we know the reasons behind that are rather bizarre. So for me, I know we needed a goalkeeper, but was this the right man, or is this Bruce doing his old club a favour by taking him off his hands? For me, if we were going for a goalkeeper in January, we should have gone for Alan McGregor, 110%. He's an experienced goalkeeper, and in the situation today, he would have dived on the ball. I'm sorry, but I don't see the point in Johnston at all. I think that Mark Bunn will end up coming in goal in the next game because of today's mistake. Today's mistake, it shouldn't have happened. It's as simple as that. It shouldn't have been the case. And on top of that, I thought our defenders were too slow in following in on that. I thought Sombalonga was 10 times more on his feet than our defenders were in that situation. And the fact that there was a player back, I can't remember who it was exactly, I'll have to watch back the replays, but the player that was back didn't clear that ball. He should have done. He wasn't quick enough off the mark. And forget the fact that Johnston made a mistake, because that is a big issue in itself. But the fact that there's no defender on his feet to try and stop that ball afterwards is bizarre. It's utterly out of order as well for any defender not to be on his feet I know that it should be a routine save, but there still should be a defender that's alerted, especially when you're playing 5 at the back. At least one of them should be aware to the fact that there is a mistake, there needs to be somebody covering, but there wasn't. So the next point I want to touch on is the elephant in the room, and it is the Jack Grealish sending off. I can't decide, first of all, whether the first yellow card was the referee's petulancy or Jack Grealish's petulancy or a mixture of both. To me, I don't know if he meant to actually kick the ball away. I don't know. It seemed like if you're kicking the ball away, you don't go and pass it the way he did. I don't know if that's Jack Grealish's petulancy or the referee's petulancy. I think it's a mixture of both. But if you're getting booked in the 30th minute for time wasting, I don't get it. I can understand if you're kicking the ball away in the 60th minute and you haven't got a yellow card already and you want a time waste and you're 1-0 up. I can understand it. But we weren't. We were in the 30th minute of the game. There's still a long way to go to try and survive without making one bad tackle. And unfortunately for him today, he did make that bad tackle. And don't get me wrong, I think Jack's got a lot of ability. I think that there's a great player there. But at the moment, his own downfall, he's the victim of his own downfall. It means that when he does come back into the team, he's going to be behind a few players. It means he's got a lot more work to do. But hopefully, something has got to click soon. It's got to. To me, he was ineffective in the second half. He had the assist, but in fairness, it was hardly the most positive performance from him when he was playing. And then going into the second half, he was isolated and he didn't do much. From the 45th minute onwards until that send-off, I didn't even realise he was still in the game, I'll be honest. And it was like we were playing with 10 men anyway. But that's besides the point. I think that it was petulant from him and he needs to learn. He's got to learn quick. He's got a lot of growing up to do quick. We've seen with Andre Green how mature he is for a 19-year-old. Jack Grealish is a few years older than him, and this is the second time he's been banned this season. And it isn't acceptable for me. I'm sorry, but it isn't. For a number 10 to get sent off twice in a season, well, granted, he wasn't sent off the first time, but suspended. It just isn't on for any number 10 to be suspended twice in a season through his own petulancy. It isn't. It just isn't on. My next point is the clinicalness of our side. Just hang on a minute. Scott Hogan and Jonathan Codger are 2 of the best strikers in the league, supposedly. And I know I've said it myself, but there was no clinicalness from anybody in that side today. Tommy Elphick, I know he's a centre-back, but he's had 4 decent opportunities to score today. Granted, one of them was with his feet, where I don't expect him to be great with, but 3 of them are from his head. And that should be a defender's bread and butter when it comes to attacking, header in the ball. And it just wasn't for us today. I know Steve Bruce has touched on in his press conference the fact that it was that we weren't clinical enough and that any other day we could have been a few goals ahead and we faced the goalkeeper on the day of his life. But we should have put them away, and clinicalness is something that we haven't had all season long, and it's not our luck or what. There's just no clinicalness for me. Whether that's a goalkeeper that's in great form or just we can't seem to finish the ball for toffee. I think I saw it online, is the fact that Bruce is not a reactive manager. He doesn't make a substitution until he really does have to. In the case of Codger today, he made the substitution. I don't know if that was connected to the head injury that he'd pick up or what, but I thought he was really late on in the game to make those substitutions. And the fact that he hauled off Codger and Hogan and Lansbury, that's 3 creative outlets gone. We didn't end up with a striker. I understand we were 10 men, that's fine. But at the time, he was going to bring on Bakuna and Adoma at the same time. In the end, we just ended up bringing on Bakuna about Adoma 5 minutes later. To me, the Bakuna change was 10 minutes too late. We should have been bringing on Bakuna for Grealish or Adoma for Grealish 10 minutes previously to when he was sent off. At 60-minute mark, we looked like we were going to start getting overrun. That's where you make the change. I know it's easy to say watching it on TV or whatever, but it's clear to see that we should have been making those changes far earlier, and the book falls with Bruce when it comes to substitutions. It's sad, to be honest. Today was a bad day again for us, and it means we've picked up 2 points in the whole of 2017. We are trying our very best to try something different at the moment. We're trying to bring a bit of positivity about Aston Villa at the moment in terms of it isn't great on the pitch, and we've got some great things lined up. The first part of that John Gregory interview is out tomorrow. I'm so excited for that to finally come out. Lots of work has gone on behind the scenes with Daniel Rolinson putting that together, and I can't wait for that first part of that. That should hopefully lighten up your Sunday. And then upcoming next week, there potentially is another big interview happening with the Villa View. We're not going to say any more than that yet, but it could be pretty big. So if you're enjoying the content, then please do drop us a like below. It really does help us massively. And comment what your thoughts were on the game. No opinion is wrong, in my opinion. I'm not going to force any opinions on any of you, so get your comments below. And also subscribe to the Villa View with post notifications on, as I've said, so you can see that John Gregory interview first before anyone else. So keep your eyes out for that as well. If you enjoyed that video, why not watch another one? Click the video choices on screen now to go and watch them in full. And don't forget to subscribe. Click on our logo there on the left and press subscribe. Easy.